Kia ora and welcome to this workshop on understanding food cravings. My name's Cherise, I'm the nutritionist for Green Prescription at Harbour Sport. What are cravings? There are several definitions that include strong desire or yearning, but in relation to food it can be described as an irresistible urge to have a specific food. This craving can be all-consuming. A person is unable to concentrate or think about anything else until it has been satisfied. In this workshop, we're not going to cover specific cravings that pregnant women experience, just due to the complexity of the hormones and things that are involved in that, and the non-food craving condition called pica. We're not going to cover that in this workshop. We are told that a craving means your body is lacking something you can get from that food. This is simply not true. It's a common myth, probably stemming from the idea that if we think in caveman terms, certain foods would provide high calorie energy and that aided their survival. In a moment, we'll look at the most common food cravings experience versus the least common, and then we'll unpack why we crave certain foods. So the 10 most addictive foods are firstly pizza, chocolate, chips, cookies, ice cream, French fries, non-diet soda, so sugary soda, cake, cheeseburgers and muffins. What do these foods have in common? Well, if we take a look at the list, we can see that most of them tend to be highly refined with plenty of white flour, sugar and fat, and we'll look at why that's important soon. Conversely, the 10 least addictive foods, so the ones that are not appealing in terms of craving, are bananas, brown rice, apples, strawberries, beans, so not baked beans, but just plain beans, carrots, cucumbers, corn, salmon, and broccoli. The common factor in these foods is that they're high in various nutrients that our bodies need. So they're really high in vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and other things that are beneficial for our health. So there are two other common myths alongside that we crave food because we're lacking something. So a common one is the claim that we crave potato chips or another salty snack because we're lacking in sodium. Well, the fact is, most New Zealand adults consume 1.5 times the recommended upper limit of sodium and salt on a daily basis, and that's mostly from processed foods. So it's not sprinkling the salt on our dinner, it's food that has had salt added to it in the processing and manufacturing. And the fact is, our bodies keep a really tight control on the amount of sodium that goes around the body. And this is to do with muscle contraction, our heart working properly. It's got lots and lots of roles in our body, sodium, and so the body keeps it in a really tight range. So it's highly unlikely that we're lacking sodium or salt unless we're doing some extremely strenuous exercise, so we're losing a lot of sweat, or if we're in a very hot condition or climate, or if we've had a gastro bug, that means we've lost fluid, and with that we've lost sodium and other electrolytes. But in the day-to-day, it's unlikely that we are lacking in sodium. Another myth that goes along with this craving food because we need something from it is that chocolate provides my body with magnesium. So chocolate does have magnesium, especially the darker varieties, but it's in such small amounts, it's unlikely to give us enough to make any difference to what our body needs. We're better off having things like almonds, black beans, or whole grains, which have so much more magnesium and other nutrients that are beneficial. It's more likely that the addition of sugar and fat in chocolate is what's more appealing. So, if the foods we tend to crave don't add anything beneficial to our bodies, why are they so irresistible? Scientists have done a number of studies and come up with around 5 different reasons, and some of them might be surprising. The first is taste. Many of the foods that we crave have high amounts of sugar and fat, both of which are very appetizing. They taste good. They're also known to stimulate feel-good chemicals in our brains. Often, the foods that we crave have a very intense flavor profile. So thinking about foods like flavored chips or crackers or ice cream, it's got a very intense flavor and it proves to be quite moreish. You can't seem to get enough. The second reason is the chemicals and their signals. Some of these are additives in food, and some of them are what happens in our body afterwards. They can produce chemical signals which disrupt and distort the messages in our body. One example is salt and fat can dampen the satiety cues. So satiety is our body telling us that it's had enough. Another newer area of study is what the gut microbes, so the bacteria that live in our gut, how they influence what we're eating by manipulating and creating signals to make sure that the preferred gut environment they thrive in is there. It hasn't been observed yet, but it's based on what scientists already know about how these bacterial microbes behave. That also includes that unhelpful gut bacteria, ones that actually cause us health issues over the long term, they thrive in environments that are high in sugar and trans fats, and they tend to push out the beneficial bacteria. So it could be that some of those foods that are very high in fat and sugar could be disrupting the balance of the bacteria that we have in our gut, and that in turn makes us want to have more of those types of foods. Another really big reason of why we have specific food cravings is the texture. The enjoyment of eating is just as much about how something feels in the mouth to eat as it is about flavour. We crave a variety of textures as much as taste. Anyone that's had to have a liquid diet for a couple of days or after surgery, or if there's been problems in the mouth or a sore throat or after a gastro bug or something, knows that they're desperate for some variety of texture, even if the taste of the food is really good. One of the big components of texture is crunchiness. It's a highly desirable attribute to our liking food, which manufacturers have really jumped on to make more and more products with that appeal. Another reason is habits. As much as we like to think that we're spontaneous and we just go with the flow, we are creatures of habit. We associate foods with habits that we have in our daily life, our routines, as well as events and occasions, more than we realise. So an example is if we tend to have a cup of tea with a biscuit in the evening, or popcorn every time we watch a movie, or a glass of wine after work, if we miss or delay this, or it's something we really look forward to after a hard day, it tends to take up a lot of real estate in our brain. We really focus on that habit, and that translates into a physical craving that won't be satisfied by anything else. And the last reason that scientists and researchers have come up with is the social and cultural influence. We are influenced by advertising, what we see others eating, which looks appealing. Just think about when you're at a restaurant and you choose your meal and then you see someone else's meal that looks better, and even what's acceptable in our culture. One example is that many women crave chocolate just before or during their period. Researchers have not been able to find any evidence that the chocolate contains anything that benefits the body at that time, such as a vitamin or a mineral, and they've concluded it's more likely to be psychological. Many people put foods like chocolate, sweets, ice cream, etc. in the taboo or restricted category. Restriction tends to make certain foods more appealing and desirable than if we eat them whenever we like. So while many people restrict these foods in their daily life, there's an unspoken understanding that they're acceptable when we're not feeling our best, such as suffering premenstrual syndrome. This permission for having a taboo food, coupled with the influence that sugar and fat have on temporarily boosting our feel-good chemicals, sets up a habit we associate with that time, which can then become a craving. In cultural and social groups where there are no restricted foods, such as non-Western cultures where chocolate just doesn't really feature, those cravings are not existent in their research. Things are and why they might be happening It's really important that we also talk about how we can make sure they're not taking over our life or hijacking the hard work that we've been putting in with our exercise and our eating well. So the first advice is that taste buds regenerate every 2 to 3 weeks. This is really great news. You can actually train your taste buds to prefer different tastes. You might really have a sweet tooth, but you actually can overcome that. You can reduce your sugar, and over a couple of weeks, you'll find that you don't need such a sweet taste. So you're not ruled by your cravings. The second piece of advice is not to go cold turkey. This means gradually introduce other foods into your daily diet that replace some of the ones that you find unhelpful. If you just make a blanket rule to take all junk out of the house and just go completely vegetarian, fruit-based, all that sort of thing, it'll happen for a little while and it'll be quite exciting, but then it can start to wear off and be a lot harder. So the advice is to do it gradually, replace maybe your potato chips with some veggie snacks and hummus, and just do it over time, and that's much more sustainable. Another one is to make a note of it. Sometimes it does help to write down what we're eating, as that makes us more aware of just exactly what we are putting into our bodies. When a lot of the time we live in a hurried, distracted way, and we might not be aware of all that we're eating. And you don't have to write it down, but you can just notice it, notice the feeling of craving, and you could meditate or distract yourself, go for a walk, have a glass of water, do something else. But if you do eat the food that you crave, eat it mindfully and enjoy it. Another one is to check labels. So we talked right at the beginning that sugar, salt, and fat are highly desirable tastes that our body really likes to have, very tasty, but it can also mess up the signals in our body of what is enough. So check the labels. If sugar, salt, or fat are listed in the first 3 to 5 ingredients, maybe put it back on the shelf and look for something else. Make the healthy option the easy option. There is no shortcut to eating well. It all needs to happen with being prepared and planning. So that means when you have time, make sure that you're preparing different foods that are easily accessible to help combat those cravings. So it might look like things like having a fruit bowl available on the bench, or cutting up vegetables and storing them in the fridge in a damp paper towel so that they stay fresh. It might mean making a batch of hummus that you can put into the fridge ready to go. So make the healthy option the easy option, because too often when we're tired, when we're busy, we go for the convenience foods, and more often than not, they seem to be the ones that might appear on that list of highly addictive foods. If you do find that it's hard to resist certain types of food, do yourself a favour and remove it. If it's not there, it's not going to cause a problem. But finally, give yourself permission to indulge on occasion. Life is about enjoying yummy food, and we need to be wise about how it affects our health if we have food with poor nutrition often. But if we change our perspective about what that food is doing, and we don't give it labels like naughty or bad or associate it with feelings of guilt, it means it has less power over our thinking and actions. So it's completely fine to enjoy treats on occasion, and when you do, really enjoy them, savor them, be mindful about how they taste, what the texture is, and really enjoy it, but just make sure it's worth it. This is a great resource that we use at Harbour Sport, with thousands of recipes and articles written by experts in the health field, nutritionists, dietitians, personal trainers, psychologists, and we know that the information is sound and up to date and follows the latest research. We offer a discounted subscription for anyone that is interested in it, so get in touch with us. Thanks for listening to the presentation, If you have got questions and you'd like to discuss more, please email me at nutrition@harboursport.co.nz. Thanks.